Hey, Robyn, how are you?
Hey, Scott, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. As we were saying, things are getting a little cold in California, so nice to throw on a jacket this week for 1 week. We're maybe finally hitting winter here in California. Who knows?
Oh, that sounds pleasant. We had a little sneak of it here in Texas for a bit, but it's back to 80-degree days. So but I won't complain. Nice sunshine and beautiful outside right now. So it's better than the 100-degree summers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Could be worse.
Absolutely. So speaking of, instead of what's worse, let's kind of talk about some of the awesome things that are going on in life. That's kind of hopefully what we all choose to kind of focus on. I'm really excited about our guest that we're going to have on our show here tonight, Karey. She's quite fantastic. But we're going to be talking a little bit about the Global Learning Connection Week that's going on right now. And I'll just kind of start off, but love to hear maybe if you participate in any activities today with your students or with your class, and what you kind of thought about making some connections.
Yeah, this has been a really great event over the years. We had a few things going on around campus, and we have over the years been involved in some pretty fun stuff, and just the ability to bring people together like this. I know, when we were growing up in school, you could do field trips and have guest speakers and whatnot. But man, the logistics were much more difficult, right? To create the time, or if you were doing a field trip to get buses and permission slips and that kind of thing, to be able to have these guest speakers come in and share knowledge with students. We got to speak with Kate Johnson a couple years ago from Microsoft with our IB business students. And man, those kids just ate it up. It was incredible information and knowledge from, an amazing high level executive in a big company. So just some really cool experiences, and really changes the way that students and teachers can learn and share experiences. I'm sure you've seen a bunch. Obviously, you use it at Microsoft, but thinking back to your teaching career, like what a difference would something like Skype or Teams have made in your teaching with your students?
Yeah, I kind of think about it as, even my own student experiences as a child, remembering when we to do pen pals, and how with somebody who lived in a different place that was not where you were from was just so intriguing and exciting, and to know that you can do that like on a daily basis inside of a classroom today, with amazing technologies such as, obviously Skype or Teams or Zoom or whatever remote tools out there that people are using. But just having that, or just your phone, right, and just picking it up and FaceTiming with somebody, but right. Just having that instant access to somebody else and getting our kids connected to other cultures and communities. You're just not limited anymore by maybe the block that you live on. You get to kind of experience a flavor of the world with just a click of a button, which is pretty amazing. And so I'm super passionate about students building empathy and learning from other students, and being globally aware of different things going on in the world. I know we live in this country of the United States, and even if you do watch the news, so much of what you see is focused on here in the United States, and we don't necessarily give ourselves a broad view of this amazing planet that we live on. So being able to provide those opportunities for kids in the classroom, I think, are just life-changing for them. So if we can just spend a couple of days a year, focusing on that particular effort and driving those efforts so that more students have these experiences, then I think it's great. But enough about what we're doing. I'm so excited to talk to Karey tonight. She's been participating in the Global Learning Connection Week for several years now, and I'm really excited to learn from her what her experiences have been and what opportunities have come out of this for her.
Yeah, so let's bring her on. So our guest this week is a terrific librarian, one of our go-getters in the MIE expert community, working out of Pennsylvania. She and I have had the pleasure to talk on a couple different projects. And not only is she like an awesome educator, but just a great person. I think always happy, like one of those people that's always smiling, always in a good mood. Super jealous of that. But we are certainly excited to welcome Miss Karey Killian. Hey, Karey, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you both, Scott and Robyn, for having me on the show. I'm thrilled to be here.
We're thrilled to have you, Karey.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself so all of our viewers can know a little bit more than just the intro about kind of what you do and how you've been getting into Skype and all that good stuff.
All right. I teach library classes in kindergarten through 5th grade. at 2 elementary schools in Milton Area School District in about central Pennsylvania. And I have about 850 students. So I teach every grade level K to 5 every day. And it is such a blessing to be able to offer learning experience. The great thing about being a librarian is my job is to provide resources. So if those resources happen to be classrooms from around the world, if it's right in with what I do, if it's in with the ISTE standards for global collaborators. So I make it a huge priority to introduce this to students. And I guess the main reason why I love doing Skype, and I always have, and I'll drop a library lesson if I know there's somebody ready to connect with me, because years later, students come to me and they're like, hey, do you remember that call that we did? Do you remember when we played that mystery animal game and we both said polar bear? Or do you remember we connected with the class in Wales? Or they just keep talking about these experiences. And I know when we make these connections, they are lifelong memories that the students have. And I think it's very important, like you said, that we are building bridges of hope for our students, for our young scholars all around the world, to see that even if we come from different parts of the world, or we live in a rural community and we connect with students in the city, there's so many things that we have that are similar and that are alike. And for the kids to see those connections and just see each other as kids and as learners, it just helps build relationships and community and empathy. I remember one time we Skyped with a class in Chicago, and there was a boy in that class and a boy in my class, and they both had the same sweatshirt on. Just stuff like that. Just kind of like, whoa, no way. Yeah. That's incredible.
You have a Target where you live too. No.
It's amazing. Love those connections.
So Karey, can you tell us maybe a few experiences that you have kind of scheduled and planned for your classes this year? Who are you guys connecting with, or what are some highlights that maybe have happened even today?
Right, I sure can. I will tell you that to get started on this, once I updated my calendar in Skype Classroom, I got a whole bunch of requests from people all around the world. Like I have requests from Saudi Arabia. So we connected with a class in Saudi Arabia today, a group of kindergartners who are learning remotely. So they joined us with Teams and we could see the kids. We were in the classroom today, but on Wednesdays we have a virtual learning day. And it was actually quite impressive for my 5th graders to see those kindergartners are in Saudi Arabia, are using the same tools, Microsoft Teams, as we are. And they just had this realization of like, wait a minute, we're not the only ones doing this. So like that was kind of interesting for them today to realize that, okay, all right. So they got to see their first language is Arabic, and the teacher was teaching them some English and some letter sounds and some words. So our students really actually got a kick out of that. They enjoyed that, even though there was an age difference. You know, I used to try to make the connections match as much as possible, but now if there's a time slot, I look at the kids that I have and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think they'll like that connection. So I'm actually more open to make connections, even with a wide age range. We had 1st graders today that had students from India, and connecting with that teacher. A few weeks ago, I said, it's 1st grade, so guessing where you live probably won't work so well for them. But they would love to probably find out about animals in India and maybe the food that you eat, or some cultural activities. So this teacher, she had older students, and she had her students create sway presentations to share with our kids. One person, their job was to talk about animals. The other person talked about different foods. And then the other one played some cultural music for us. And she had the beautiful dress on, and she did a dance. And those 1st graders were silent as could be. Really enjoyed that presentation. They're like, wow, she's good. But they just, they're going to remember that. That's a memory where we live. I'm not sure how many of my students would ever connect with someone from India, or someone from Saudi Arabia. So, just these connections are just real eye openers for our students and for our learners. Ended the day off with a great Skype call to Alaska. So we got to talk to Sam Jordan and see some snow. And he just got the kids all excited, and they asked a whole bunch of questions. And as an educator, I will tell you, the first few Skype calls I did, one of the hardest things to do is to let go and let your kids ask whatever questions they want. But, kids are curious, and I let them ask whatever questions they want. One day, one time we had a Skype call to Israel, and a student comes up and he's like, "What kind of shoes do you wear?" But it was actually an excellent learning experience because he said, "Well, actually, here where I am, and we work in a farm, so the shoes that I prefer to wear are boots." And so the kid's his eyes went up and went, "Oh, really?" Like, he didn't expect an answer like that. But whatever questions they have, let them be curious, let them ask those questions. And it's powerful. It's empowering for them to be able to ask their questions. And then they own the call too, which is great.
I love that. I think it speaks to something that many of us are trying to move to, which is that student-centered idea, right? I think you said it best. Students are curious. And so often as teachers, we're so prone to, well, I've got to teach the curriculum and I've got to cover these standards. And we forget that we actually teach little people, right? Regardless, kindergarten through 12th grade or whatever. Have you seen this kind of mentality like move throughout your school? And like, is an event like Skype in the Classroom or the Global Connection, is that like helping learning throughout campus? Are you seeing a difference among the students and the teachers?
I do. So you see, I connected with every class I had. So I do that for 2 days. So everybody in the grade level for 2 days, they get the Skype calls. And the way the teachers help me out a lot, like just today I walked into school and said, "Hey, just want to let you know we are connecting with someone in Alaska today for your students in library class." So she took time out of the day today, and she had the kids write questions down and prepare and get ready, cool, even though she wouldn't be there for the call. But if I say we're going to do a mystery animal, is there anything you've read about in your class that we'd be able to use for our Skype call? the teachers, help out and do things like that. I have some teachers joining in, but more teachers are joining in on the on-demand calls that Skype now has on their website. So I actually made a form for the teachers and said, those days when you lose your special because we were pulled to cover classes or there just wasn't enough coverage and you don't have a planning period for the day, these are on-demand Skype calls with authors and people from National Park Rangers and all over. And they are certified and they are going to be kid-friendly. So the teachers can I said, here's the link. And I said how many minutes each one is. And so they're using those and the students are enjoying that time and they can still get some things done. And there's always some follow-up activities to go with them that the teachers can do as well. But I had a classroom aide today in my classroom who worked with a small group of students. And after the call today, we talked to Saudi Arabia and they just kind of left. And she said, "Do you guys realize what just happened today? They live like across the ocean." And she's like, "Get the map out. Let's look at this." And she got them all excited. So, it's everyone in the classroom, that can share in excitement and that can learn with the students. So I have seen a little bit of that spread, and it's really great to see.
Yeah, I always find it amazing how many lessons kind of are built out of one lesson, right? So you start off with this call maybe to a teacher in Saudi Arabia, and then, it turns into a geography lesson and where are we calling, what's, then looking at the landforms in that area and then going all into the different cultural practices and what people, in that particular region, their main beliefs or how their government works, right? And so there's so many history lessons and just are even writing lessons, like having the kids be able to write about their experience. So being able to infuse so many different core languages or subjects that we have to teach in the classroom every day, it works around maybe just like one of these lessons. But I do have one question for you, Karey. So I'm sure teachers are listening in now and they're like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know you could do this." Or how would you recommend someone get started? So for someone who maybe knows nothing about Global Learning Connection Week or maybe has never, used Skype in the classroom or visited the site, how would you recommend they get started?
I would definitely recommend going to Education, the Skype.com website, and that's a place to go to get those connections. Some people will be like, people all over the world, and I say just as much as you can. So it's because I got those connections once I went on to the website and I updated my profile, and you have to get your calendar ready. So you put in the times where you're available to do your Skype calls. And once you put those times in, you're going to start getting requests from people all around the world. And if it works for you, you accept the request. If it doesn't, then you don't accept it. and maybe provide another time that might work. But if you really want to get those connections of people that you don't know, but you know are safe, they're on the Microsoft Educator community, so you know they're educators from around the world, fill in your profile, update your calendar, and then you're going to start seeing the emails come in for requests for your classroom. If you don't update your calendar, people cannot request you or your class to join them. So that's very important. And if you're just not sure where to start, there are so many resources there, how to get started, videos, how to get started. I know I have a few teachers within the next day. Tomorrow I have some teachers, it's their very first time doing this with students, and that always gets me so excited when I can be like one of the first ones to make that connection. I'm like, here you go, what do you need, let's try this, and this might work. And I'll tell you something, it is okay if it doesn't work. 100%. You know, like I've been doing this for years, and you know, I got on that call today. I'm like, oh man, how come these microphones aren't working? So I'm going into every classroom. So I'm unplugging and plugging all day long. And I'm like, oh wait, I clicked the button, I turned this on, and you know, it's okay. It is okay. So and now it's completely different for many classrooms, because some are connecting through Teams so that their students at home can join in, or some are sharing their screen. So just be flexible and try it out. And, you know, if it doesn't work, you know, find people that can help you. And, but yeah, give it a try, give it a go. And it's okay if it doesn't go perfectly. I just walk in the classroom with my laptop. I don't have a special webcam that I use. I just have a set of speakers so the kids can hear and project it on the screen. But it's lasting memories that you're making. You do get a little nervous the first few times. I remember butterflies in my belly of like, I have no idea what these kids are going to say, because you're used to being in control and in charge. So you're like, it's hard to let go. But once you do, you're like, oh, that was so cool, because you see the looks on their faces, and they're like, and you just see those aha moments just when one sentence was made by the presenter or something. You're like, yeah, wow, that was great. So just seeing the looks on the kids' faces makes it totally worth it, because they do that. And I'll also say this. Sometimes when the kids are sitting there and they're kind of like slouching in their chair or a little roochy, and you're like, oh, maybe they're not so much getting this. They do. All right. So like there was one class I thought, oh, it might have been a little too much, but the call's done. And I say, okay, what's one thing you learned from this call? And like everybody raised their hand and they're telling me things that they learned. I said, okay. You are paying attention. All right. So, you know, and that's how I love to end it, is what's one thing that you learned? And if I could do this call and you learned something new today, fantastic.
And it's so much more engaging than reading it all from a textbook, right? I mean, I think of the way that I studied, everything was, you know, read this chapter, or here's an article, or that kind of thing. I mean, just the ability to connect with real people across the US, like around the globe, and to hear their stories and understand culture. And I mean, as you said, the power of the kids being able to respond and answer questions. I wish I could get that in my math class. I get crickets whenever I ask questions. I mean, just that energy and engagement it's awesome. It's amazing.
And the questions that they ask are questions that can't be found on the internet all the time. So, you know, a question like, have you ever eaten whale meat? Or, you know, a question you're like, oh, I never would have thought of that. But then you get a response like, yes, I have had whale meat, and it's actually a celebration to the Inuit tribes in Alaska to do that. So it's a very special event if you do get invited to their celebration. But, you know, it just, the smallest questions, you're like, oh, I'm not sure. You get like excellent answers where you're like, wow, I didn't know that. So they come up with the best ones, but you know, they're good.
Well, speaking of questions, you know, one of the things that we do on our show each week is do a lightning round of some questions. So Karey, if you'll play with us, we'd love to play lightning round with you and ask you a few questions if you're open to that.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right. So question number 1, what's your favorite color? Purple. What is your favorite word?
Fantastic.
What is your favorite sound?
Leaves rustling.
What is your least favorite sound?
Dog barking. In the middle of a call.
Of course. Welcome to 2020, right? What job outside of your current job would you most like to attempt?
Ooh, working with Skype.
Nice. Little plug. If anybody's listening, call Karey. And the flip side of that, what job outside of your own would you most definitely not want to attempt?
Coal mining.
Ooh, good one. And then at the end of your career, when all is said and done, what do you hope they say about you at your retirement party?
Oh, those kids had so much fun learning with you.
I know they did, Karey.
No doubt about it. Just your personality, your experiences, there's no doubt kids are engaged and enriched and everything by all you're doing there.
Yes, your passion is contagious, my friend.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Karey. Learning from you, hearing the goodness that you're sharing with your students and the doors that you're opening, the cultures you're exposing to your students to, and the friends you're making from around the planet. It's just amazing. So thanks so much for all you're doing for yourself as well as your students and your fellow teachers as well.
Great. And thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure and a huge blessing. So you have a great night, and I'm going to keep Skyping. I'm sure I'll see you on camera some other time.
And if you're watching, follow Karey on Twitter. You will see all her adventures from today and tomorrow and throughout the year for sure. Thank you, Karey.
Thanks, Karey.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Well, I always love getting to interact with Karey. She just definitely puts a smile on your face, and her kids are so fortunate.
You can't help it. Like I said, I've got the pleasure of working with her a couple times. She's just always like perky and student first and all about their learning and engagement. And I mean, everything anybody running a school would want to have in a staff member. Just a super inspiring educator, and we're fortunate to have her in our community for sure.
Yeah, she's also a fabulous travel buddy. I've gone on a couple of trips overseas, and she's a great partner to explore different cities and countries with as well.
Love it. That's an important quality in a friend, Very important quality. I feel like if you can travel with somebody, they're a friend for life.
For sure. Love it.
Well, let's get into kind of switching gears a little bit. And in addition to celebrating what everybody's doing with the wonderful things with Skype in the classroom and the global learning connection, we definitely want to take some time to honor our veterans with Veterans Day this week and all the great things going on in the world. And I know in particular, Robyn, you wanted to touch on some of your friends at Microsoft and definitely the connection that you all have with veterans in the military and honoring their service.
Yeah, absolutely. I think celebrating our heroes, our veterans is so important that we should, take a moment to pause and reflect on the tremendous amount of service that our troops and our veterans have put forth and dedicated their lives, many of them many years of their lives to our freedom that we get to experience here in the U.S. And with the election week that just happened last week and Veterans Day coming up, it's a great time to really reflect on how we got here as a country, where we are today, and for all these heroes that have served our country. And so at Microsoft, I wanted to give a special shout out to Richard Langford, Eric Orman, and Ben Hooker, who are all three U.S. education employees here at Microsoft and who have spent many years of their life serving different branches of government. So Rich was part of the U.S. Navy, attended the Navy Academy. He's actually my manager. And so I get to hear some of his stories all the time, his travels around the world. Eric also was in the U.S. Army and served many years overseas as well. And then Ben, who reminded me today that it is the actual birthday of the U.S. Marine Corps today. So happy birthday to all of the Marine Corps. I think they say Semper Fi. So Semper Fi, Ben, and fellow Marines. So shout out to all these folks who not only served our country, but now get to enjoy their time working with education customers around the U.S.
And you touched on something really great there, which is the stories, right? I mean, we all have a story to tell, but I feel like these veterans in particular, whether they served in a war or, just served on base or wherever, just the experiences they've had, the passion for the country, for freedom, for our rights and all those things, super inspiring and really engaging. And I know there's actually many more resources out there to speak with veterans, many more than I even knew coming into this week. I was happy to research this and kind of see all the resources out there, but just some of the organizations that you see on the screen there all have connections to or can assist you with making connections with veterans. So you've got your national and local Department of Veterans Affairs. they can connect you. And in line with our conversation today, doesn't have to be on campus. You can do it through Skype or Teams or Zoom or whatever. The ability to connect with those folks, local American Legion chapters, even the History Channel. They had a long handout, almost like an education approach to this with their partnership with veterans.com. And they had a whole 2-page outline of what you can do. So if you want to bring veterans into your community to speak to your students, to your local community center, whatever, any sort of educational angle, I definitely recommend looking up these organizations and more. Some great connections to be able to connect with veterans. And really, like we said, Robyn, share those stories or allow those folks to share the stories that they've been through with our students and in our communities.
Yeah, and it's also about actually supporting these organizations too, and giving back to these organizations as well. They support our veterans, right? The one that's in the center here, Wounded Warrior Project, is the actual charity that I participate in and donate to as a Microsoft employee, just because of the work that they do with our soldiers that have gone through some different tragedies in their lives. So. Yeah. It's like this, like everything, it's a two-way street, right? We need to give to these organizations, and they're willing to give so much back to us, not only their dedication to their service, but to also supporting those who do, and then connecting those stories back to our students as an educational moment.
Absolutely. Tell us about the new Minecraft stuff, Robyn, that's going on.
Yeah, so speaking of veterans and history, there are actually lots of Minecraft lessons out there that are available today that actually, so specifically this one explores World War I. So students are able to kind of go in and have some remote experiences in some of the worlds that were designed and built around World War I, and they're all historical in nature and based on actual relevant facts that took place and locations, etc. So these are lessons that are already done that, even if you've never used Minecraft before, you can feel confident to go in here and assign these lessons to your students and have them learn the history by being an active participant in the history. So if you haven't checked these out, I definitely encourage you to do so. Digital Labs is the company that actually created these lessons. So shout out to those folks as well.
Yeah, some of our good friends were behind the scenes doing this. We actually, a little personal story, we have a teacher here who teaches a semester-long World War I class. And so I'm going to try and work with him on these Minecraft lessons to kind of incorporate that into his curriculum. He does an amazing job of bringing in guest speakers and really making it a real experiential class. So we're hoping to kind of add that to the curriculum. Could be cool.
Very awesome.
Something that came to me last night, anybody who knows me knows I'm a big sports nut. I was watching the NFL game last night, and kind of a cool story. Right at the end, the Patriots kick a field goal to win the game, which is not really the important part of the story. But the announcers had done their research and noticed that the long snapper, the guy who, if you're not familiar with football, who hikes the ball back to the holder before they kick it, that's Joe Cardona there on the right-hand side. He's actually in the US Navy Reserve. And now plays for the Patriots. And so they actually mentioned that mid-play last night. And I just thought it was a really cool celebration during Veterans Day week to announce that. And just the connection that the NFL has every season during this week. All the players and coaches wear camo gear. It's available online so fans can purchase it, and proceeds go to charities and support the military and military families. So just came to me last night. I thought it was a really cool story. We, have these opinions of these macho football players, but to know, many of them have military backgrounds or families of military backgrounds, thought it was a really cool connection.
Absolutely.
And speaking of connections, Robyn, I know you and I both have kind of a personal connection to the military. So share your connection in particular.
Absolutely. So, the two men here on the left hand side of the screen are two of my heroes in my own personal life. So my husband, Mark, served in the Army in the late 90s and the early 2000s, both in the active Army and then followed up by some years in the reserves. So, just knowing, what he was able to experience and the life lessons that the military was able to teach him and help him become the amazing husband that he is for me every day. I'm just grateful for it. And then the gentleman there to the right, Edward, that is my grandfather. So my grandfather was a World War II veteran, served our country, and he's been gone now for several years. But he, was my only grandfather I ever had, and also holds a very special place in my heart and helped me, become the woman that I am today. So for these two men, I'm just incredibly grateful for their service and, for being the person they are in my life. And I know they impacted so many more as well.
I love that. And for me, kind of a similar story. Both my grandfathers, mom's side and dad's side, were in the military, all in San Diego. My dad spent time in the Air Force, all around the world, actually, on a number of different bases. I think it's more than 10 different bases that he worked on. And growing up in San Diego, if you've ever lived or been in San Diego, it is a military town from north to south. Everything from Camp Pendleton, the Marine base in North County, all the way down to the naval base and the air station closer to San Diego. So everywhere you go in San Diego, you see military. So it's been a part of my life from day one. Every sporting event and concert in San Diego, there was always representation of the different armed forces and different branches of the military. And I definitely have a tremendous respect. Every time I drive from Orange County down the coast to my mom's house through Camp Pendleton, I always think about it and just how fortunate we have those men and women, serving for us and protecting our freedom. So definitely near and dear to my heart for sure.
Yes. And with that, we'd say thank you to you, to anyone who's listening out there today that has, either served in the military yourself or has a loved one. We know that, it's an extreme hardship oftentimes for the entire families of those that are in the military. So thank you for your dedication to our country and our freedoms each and every day. Absolutely.
And speaking of celebrating, we always love to end the show celebrating our epic educators, pointing out, 2 or 3 or 4 of the great educators around the country that are really doing awesome work. And certainly we wanted to celebrate not just Karey, who did some great work with Skype in the Classroom and the Global Learning Connection, but we had some other friends who were doing some great things as well this week, Robyn.
Yeah, absolutely. So from Georgia, we've got Marissa Williams that we want to give an Epic Educator #1 award out to tonight for her connections and her students and participation in the Global Learning Connection Week. So shout out to Marissa. Thanks for giving your students this opportunity to expand their learning walls and meet new friends. Epic Educator #2 goes out to Jennifer Brown from Hillsborough County out of Florida. Jennifer had the opportunity to actually connect with one of our senior executives here at Microsoft today and her students. So her technology students were able to connect with JP Courtois, who is one of our executives that lives in Paris. And so these students were able to make a virtual call to Paris and learn from him and his experience. And he was definitely able to learn from them as well. So it was a great connection call that was made today. Thanks, Jennifer, for sharing your kids.
And I think he tweeted it was over some 4,000 miles, right? From Paris to Florida where they are. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks like it's like 45, 56 from the Florida location to Paris. Yeah.
Super
All
cool.
No jet lag, per Jennifer. And our last Epic Educator, but definitely not the least that we want to recognize tonight, is Steve Oslander. And Steve, it looks like he was able to get his kids to participate in some real good fun and competitive fun. So we've got Team England here, Team Ireland. Looks like, I think there might have been another one. I saw there Scotland was in the race here. And so the students were using Kahoot to be able to connect with each other and make a friendly competition out of as well. So thank you guys, you educators, for, like I said, extending these opportunities for your students, having them learn from other students, tearing down the walls of the classroom, and really building lifelong learnings and friendships with other people across different nations. So thank you so much for all you do.
That was amazing. I looked up that Kahoot Cup, Robyn, and last year, I'm going to reach out to Steve to find out this year, but last year they had 845 teams from 35 countries in the 2019 Kahoot Cup during the Skype in the Classroom. And that's mind-boggling to have that many people involved in a competition.
It looks like Melanie Lejeune is writing in right now that they're going to play in the Kahoot Cup tomorrow. So you'll have to keep us feed Melanie. Let us know how your kids do.
Represent, Melanie. Bring home the title. Super cool. Robyn, I know we're excited about our next episode. In addition to Thanksgiving and talk about being thankful, we have ISTE 2020 coming up, and it's going to be virtual this year. Really, really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So ISTE that normally takes place in June, this past June was postponed as we were in this pandemic, and so ISTE decided to go virtual, and they're hosting ISTE 2020 all remotely this year. It'll be starting the week after Thanksgiving and running throughout that week. And we are going to have Michelle here with us, Dr. Zimmerman, who is not only an ISTE author, but she has been a vital participant in ISTE for so many years. So we're looking forward to learning some of her top tips and suggestions for interacting and getting the most out of ISTE, not just from herself as an educator, but she also typically has many years in a row traveled with students to have her students speak at ISTE as well. So that's something I really want to dig in and learn a little bit more about, and how we can get more teachers giving a real stage for their students to show up and share their stories.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think that's the best part about what she's done and her team at Renton Prep up in the Seattle area. I mean, the way they put students at the front of all this. I know you and I have both had the pleasure of seeing her team and their students present on a number of occasions. And it inspired us in our school to start doing that a little bit more, because it's great to hear from an educator expert, but man, as Karey said earlier, right, when you hear it from the mouths of the students, it's so much more valuable and engaging and really, really exciting. So I know we're looking forward to hearing from Michelle in a couple days.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely encourage you to tune back in with us on the 19th, guys. We're going to learn from Michelle and see what's next for the show. So thank you all for tuning in tonight and learning with us, alongside of us. We're so excited to be here with you. And if you have recommendation for a future guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to Scott or I. Robyn Hrivnatz on Twitter, and Scott is at Bricker Coaching. So feel free to reach out, give us a shout out, and let us know if either yourself or you have a recommendation for a future show.
Absolutely. And don't forget to catch all the old episodes on our YouTube channel. The address is right there, aka.ms/USMicrosoftEDULive. You've got everything back to the premiere episode, all of our guests, great information, really fun, great learning. We hope you go back and watch a few of those. And as Robyn said, join us here in about 9 days for our chat with Michelle Zimmerman.
Night, guys.
Thanks, Robyn. Have a great night, everybody. See you soon.